Welcome to the channel where all you gotta do is port this cylinder head some more. Anyway, we're gonna do the same thing we did to this one. Get rid of the swirl dam, but I'm gonna get a little more aggressive with porting on this guy. I'm also gonna open up the valve seat. I'm gonna pile some Bondo around the outside of this. I'll clean it up first so it sticks to it. And then I'll make this valve bigger. I'll probably get rid of this margin as well. But there'll be iterations of it. I'm trying to get to 240-ish CFM, so work 35 CFM from there, so that's going to take a little bit of work. Alright, I don't know how well you can see that, but I got that valve cleaned up. Look how out of concentric this dish is. It's pretty terrible. It's pretty thrashed. I wouldn't use these valves, but for what I'm doing with it, piling Bondo on it, figuring out what shape I want. And the reason I'm doing that is because you can buy valves for this that are oversized, but I'm not going to buy those until I know what size I need. And then once I know what size I need, I'll figure out what's available and buy the closest thing to that. Maybe I'll buy something bigger than I need and remove some material from the outside or change the back cut or whatever. So, because when you're making like aftermarket valves, you don't know what people are going to do with them, right? You just like, oh, it's bigger, here you go. Whether it works or not, that's the engine builder, cylinder head porter guys or gals problem, right? So you just make something bigger, you get your money, and then whatever they do with it, that's on them. So, and if there's nothing that will work, you can actually go to some valve manufacturers and say, hey, can you make this valve? What's the size of your forging, blank, and then can you make this out of it? So sometimes they use the same forging blank for several different size valves, and they can just turn them to the length and put the grooves where you want them and whatever. So anyway, that's an option that's going to add 50% to the cost of the valve, something like that. And you can't buy one, you got to buy a couple of sets, probably 2 or 3 sets. Okay, I'm getting ready to start grinding on this. Actually, I did already 2 seconds worth, but I scribed a line around the outside of this. That's 100 thousandths. So 200 thousandths bigger than this. It should be, I didn't do the calculations, but that's plenty of extra area. And it's always good to have taper on it. And the manifold that I'm going to be running on this, I know because I designed it, has tons of extra clearance around it. So I can port that to match, no problem. So the other thing I've done is made a Bondo valve. And I use a piece of rubber, so once it hardens I can just bend the rubber and it falls right off. You don't have to really do much scraping. So, and same thing, I stick this to it, and then when you peel it, it comes right off. So anyway, we're gonna start hogging on this guy. I got my shitty little flashlight down there. This is actually a pretty good view. You can see all the gnorpses and bumps and stuff in there for no good reason. So this one has like kind of a thin spot right there. If it's focusing on my finger for no reason, right? Like, what is the point? So if that breaks through there, I can just weld on the back side of it. I mean, don't break through and then weld on it. Weld on it and then port it, right? So that's what this football head is for. I'm not planning on using this head for anything. This is just learning, and then heads that are on that guy I will utilize. But first things first, I got my kind of rougher. I like to use the oval cutters personally, but there's lots of different shapes you can use, but I find these are the bestest. But when you're using this really aggressive one like this, you gotta hang on to it good. So not probably the one you want to start your porting career with. So I got this thing, it's not done, but it's opened up a bit. You can see there's no valve guide hole anymore because I jammed a piece of bar stock in there. So you can see I put a 100,000ths scribe around the outside of it. But it's important to put the scribe bigger than what you want, and then you can see where you are, right? So if you want to take 100,000ths off, make this a little bigger than that, make it 150. And then your eyeball is really good at, right? Once you grind past it, you don't know where you're at. So it's kind of a tattletale, right? If you just grind to the thing, you don't really know if you went really far past it or you just ran up to it, right? So anyway, that's what that one looks like compared to that. I don't know if you can see it's bigger, but it's not a lot. But the area gets, the area increases a lot by taking, a 1/16 of an inch off the outside. That hugely increases the area. Alright, so that's how that works. Just bend it, pops off. So you can use it another day. And the same thing with this, just peel it off like that. And then I'll just take this, stick it in the lathe, and turn that to whatever size I want. There. I have an 1/840 valve. Anyway, it's 100-ish thousandths bigger. So we'll see what that does once I open up the valve seat. Okay, so I get this thing set up on my milling machine. I used some dowel pins in the head bolt holes. I just put a piece of clay on there to keep them from falling through. So one there, indicated it straight. So it's on the table straight, and then I tilted this thing at 10-ish degrees and indicated that. If you can, come on, focus. So that is indicated L straighto. So now I just got to pick up the center. I can pick up the center of this guide or this bore of this seat, either one. Since this one doesn't have a guide, I can't pick that one up. So my plan is just to set 0 there, move over 100 millimeters, which is the bore spacing on the modular motor, and then I'll be ready to get my seat tool out, which I just have a fixture for a new in cutter or a SERDI cutter that goes into that guy. And then I can do a 5 angle, 10 angle, 3 angle, whatever new in cutter I choose. Or I could just do 45, whatever. Pretty much has this, I mean, what a SERDI can do, you can pretty much do on a manual mill. The nice thing about a SERDI is it has like this ball swivel thingy that you just put your carbide pilot in there and you let everything stabilize and then you lock it down, and then you don't have to do any indicating stuff. But honestly, $30,000 for a SERDI machine, as often as I do this, it's not really worth it. If you have a business that does cylinder heads, then sure, yeah, makes sense, pays for itself. And you know, a year probably. But I just do this for shits and giggles, really. So, but if you need to do it, it's, you know, it might be a better option than going to the machine shop and getting, you know, grabbing your ankles and stuff. So I got this all set up, ready to go. Got my cutter in there. I indicated this guy in to the seat, and then I dialed over 100 and indicated it anyway. And then I re-indicated it, and that's what I got. That's apparently how good Ford positions the valves. Like, not that great. 5 thousandths, 4 thousandths off. Guess it's not that terrible, but. Okay, so that's D for done. So I kind of did this a little bit backwards, so it ended up with some chatter here. I should have opened, done all this clearance on the inside of the seat first, but I didn't, so it was making a really wide cut, and so that's why it chattered. But if I would have done this first and then done that, it would have been fine, probably. But this is just for flow bench work, so yeah, that'll be okay for flow bench working. If this did happen and you needed to run it and it wasn't just for flow bench work, you could always just lap those. Just put some lapping compound on your valves. It won't hit the second angle there, but it'll hit the sealing angle, so that'll be fine. So I'm going to pop this thing off and steal the fake guides out of this guy. I'll actually blend this all. The short side I didn't really touch at all, so you really don't want to touch the short side until everything else is, you know, opened up, because material on the short side is your friend. So you got to wait till the last minute, and once you move the seats out, and then you have a little bit more short side to play with, and then blend it. So yeah, so usually when I put stuff, the last thing I do is a short side, because that's kind of the most critical part of it. And you really don't know what you have until you do your valve seats and valve work. So anyway, so this thing is already set up, so theoretically I could pop this thing off, pop it back on. All I have to do is indicate it straight and indicate the center. Right? The challenging part is getting it to the right angle. And then when you're doing an actual valve job, those should be like 100 and 0. But this one wasn't, so yeah, I'm not gonna sweat it on this football head, but in real life I'll probably double check that before I get started to make sure they're kinda close. Okay, so we're all done with at least the first iteration. I'm just gonna knock the fake guide out of there and put my other fake guides and my fancy green valve. That's what that looks like. I just made a little step. I don't know if you can see it right there, like a 3,000 step. So it presses in the last little bit. So that guy's going to be super duper shrouded, which I totally get. And since it's a bigger valve, probably need to be shorter. Like these have these big dishes in them. But piston reliefs are a thing as well. So I'm just seeing where my sealing seat is, which looks, I don't know if you can see that. Looks pretty good. So the fun part, put the springs in, and then we'll spark plug moves over and the flow bench. Oh, pile some clay in here too, make it mimic that. Until then, so the last thing you do before you throw this on the flow bench is you stick this, basically it's a box that mimics the cylinder bore size and position, and just make sure everything looks concentric and, you know, appropriate before you throw it on the flow bench and realize, oh crap, I was running the wrong size bore, or I used the wrong set of dowel pins to line it up, or whatever. So just a little safety tip before you get this thing on the flow bench. Okay, so this is the results from the last test with the bigger valve. Stage 2 porting, that size intake valve. And as you can see, it didn't really gain anything. Actually, it lost a little bit. I think the only place it lost was 6 millimeter lift. Oh, no, 7 millimeters lift is where it lost. It goes underwater there. But it pretty much, I mean, it gained a tiny bit in here, what, 5% or something, 4%. And then up here, it gained, you know, I think it was 7%, 6%, which I opened up the port area about 10%, 12%, something like that. So actually, I think it was 14. So there's definitely more in here, but I think this down here, the curtain area is opening bigger, but it's shrouded. So a couple of things, like when you're doing this kind of stuff, don't be distraught over like 15 CFM is nothing to sneeze at here, but this is a huge change in port volume and size of the valve. But that's how it works, right? You don't just like grind on it and then it makes it magically awesome, right? Yeah, it's an iterative process. So the next step of this, I'll pour a mold of this one, and then I'll section it off into little bits and measure what the area is, and make sure my area is not big, small, big, small, big, small, right? I want to make sure the area is constantly getting smaller and smaller and smaller until it gets to the throat area, and then into the bowl area. It can get bigger again, and then I'll put it on the flow bench and use my little rag cheat and see what the area looks like. So if there's areas of turbulence or instabilities, I can focus on those. And actually on the flow bench, you can just pile some clay in there. Like, you can't take material off, but if you want to add it, you can put some on the short side, whatever. It won't work in real life, but it gives you an idea what the air wants. So this is an iterative process, like I think I've been saying. And we're not, my goal is up here. So we're not super far away from it. Thanks for watching. If you like this content and want more, subscribe, like, and share.